This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Turn your laptops and earphones down just a little bit for what you are about to receive.
That's what I'm talking about. Coco Gauff, a U.S. Open champion. That's what I'm talking about. Oh my God. Look at her. Look at her. Oh. Oh.
Get up, Coco Gauff. You've just won the U.S. Open.
That is what I'm talking about. And here is one of the protagonist, but he's going to get a little helping hand too. Welcome to Miles, tuned into David Tennis, and Nick Carter.
I mean, is there a question about my surname? Hello there, everyone. Welcome to WTA Weekly. And I am very pleased to be joined by the clearly still riding the high Miles David. How are you feeling about seeing that? And before you say anything about that video, you have yourself to blame. You put that on social media.
Yes, I did. I'm feeling good. Thanks to be back on Talking Tennis, Nick. It's always fun to talk to you. And shout out to John for putting together that footage and making a fool of myself. Making it less cringy, because that was pretty cringe, and it's always a level of cringe to watch that back, even though it was posted like 48 hours ago. I feel great. I literally, backstory to that moment, I was watching with my community that always joins me in Twitter Spaces and whatnot, live during the final, and obviously as a Coco Gauff fan, I was hoping that she would lift the title, but I'm one of those people that prepares for the worst and kind of prays for the best. So it wouldn't have been a bad day if Sabalenka had lifted the U.S. Open trophy and then left as world number one, because I feel like that's fitting for the season she's had. But I told myself, if Coco gets to a if she gets within a game, basically, of winning the title, I was gonna just post my phone or put my phone on my tripod and press record during that final game, and yeah, that's how that came to be. So yeah.
I mean, you're saying that you would be okay with Sabalenka winning, but I suppose given Gauff got as close as she did, I could tell there was a lot of relief coming out. I mean, as well, you've been a supporter of Coco from day one, right? Since she beat Venus at Wimbledon.
I was looking at my Instagram stories, and I don't know if I just posted this on my stories in passing, but I was really inspired by her win over Venus Williams. Like, even though I wasn't happy that Venus went out first round of Wimbledon, the imagery of her like jumping up and down and being only 15 years old, I remember that connecting with me back in 2019. So yeah, I've been watching ever since. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember that match happening. I remember talking with a work colleague who doesn't usually watch tennis, but was it was before the match even happened. It was very, very excited about the prospect of Venus Williams playing a 15-year-old African-American, just because they share a similar heritage. So, and I remember talking to her about it and her being like, oh yeah, I'm going to go watch that. What time is it on? I was like, well, it's tennis, so we don't 100% know, but we'll or how long is it going to last? Again, it's tennis. We don't 100% know. But yeah, and she's clearly captured the imagination. So it's very hard to say that a star is born because she was born on that star was birthed on that day at Wimbledon. But it's expanded, it's grown, and maybe you could say that the forging process is now complete. She is a Grand Slam champion.
That's what it feels like. I mean, as somebody that has watched a ton of her matches, especially her Grand Slam matches, I specifically remember the opening round losses to Sevastova at the 2020 US Open. That was I wouldn't say it was a low moment, but it wasn't great. And then also, which I think was kind of a low moment, the 2022, which feels a long time away from now, but doesn't in some ways. She lost to Wang Qiang first round, and I was expecting her to go pretty far in that tournament. So to like go through those kind of low moments in slams where at that point people had eyes on her, to now looking at people have eyes on her for all of the good reasons, and to see how she marched through this draw and had to kind of come back from behind in the final, it just feels good. It feels good, and I kind of give myself on the pat on the back, because I mean I saw the story before the story actually unveiled, and that doesn't always happen in tennis, because there's been a couple of WTA faves I've had where I was like, oh yeah, it's going to happen for him, and then it doesn't, and I'm kind of left like, oh, I wish it would have. But this moment felt good. I think that's what you saw in the video, just a genuine like, oh, she's finally arrived. So yeah, that all came out. And I didn't know so I'll end on this. I know that my voice fluctuates. Mm-hmm. I just did not know that I could hold that octave in that moment for so long. One of my friends was like, you went from a soprano to a baritone in about 60 seconds. So yeah.
I know. Do you know what? I was thinking something similar. I didn't realize that Marv's voice had that range. That was why you first.
Sometimes I surprised myself.
It was my reaction when I first saw that video on Instagram when I was scrolling through after the match, and oh, there's Mars. Okay, headphones. So let's talk about a little bit. We've obviously talked a lot about sort of what this potentially means for Gauff's stature. We might talk a little bit more about her future going forward, but. Obviously, I commented that final with Tom, so a lot of people probably know my thoughts on that final because a lot of our regular viewers would have seen that commentary. What did you think of that performance from Coco Gauff in the final?
I really enjoyed it. I thought that both of them came out nervous, Sabalenka and Coco, but Coco's ability to adjust to what Sabalenka was bringing to the table was magnificent to watch in real time. And she used a combination of, I feel like, what she's been kind of learning with her new partnership with Brad Gilbert, and then also Pegula, is that she has the legs, she has the athleticism to hang with everybody. And although the forehand isn't technically the most sound, she has the athleticism to make up for that tenfold. And to see her use all of those things, put air under her forehand, track down every single one of Sabalenka's shots, and just make it difficult for her and kind of tire her out, that was great. And that's kind of what I love about that matchup. It isn't always the prettiest tennis. Like in between some of the amazing points, you get some clunkers, right? Because Sabalenka and her big babe tennis, the way she just kind of throws everything into the ball, it kind of is a hit or miss. And mostly this season it's been hit, right? It's not been too many misses. But the points that they're able to create with the power and the athleticism is honestly why I watch tennis. So yeah, I really enjoyed that match and the performance from Coco.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. How do you deal with power tennis? Answer: absorb it and either until you're able to throw it back, or until they miss. And that's what it works. I remember when we were trying to look up the Gauff Sabalenka head-to-head. I think it was a few days before the final, and the WTA website crashed, so it said that they'd never played. It was like, well, that's not true. They've definitely played before. I'm sure Coco has a winning head-to-head. And I think there are people who were surprised that Coco has the winning head-to-head after today's match. I don't think they should be, because she, after that first set, which granted Sabalenka came out the blocks firing, Coco adjusted, dealt with it, figured it out, and sort of used her strengths to keep her in the match so that she could fire herself up and get her forehand going. And her forehand compared from the start of the match compared to the end of the match was almost completely different. And it was a sign of how she grew into it. And I think although the stats might suggest that Sabalenka had a bad day at the match, anyone who actually watched the match would say that Coco Gauff won it. She was the one who turned it around.
Yeah, I would agree. There wasn't some huge dip that Sabalenka had in the second or third sets. It was just kind of Coco staying the course. And I remember, I think they played a match in Ostrava. I know they played a match for sure in Canada last year, and there may be some other matches that don't come to mind, but a lot of them have been 3 sets, and they've been scrappy performances by Coco to either grit out the win or come really close. And I enjoy what a future rivalry between those two would look like. I think Sabalenka noted it in her runners-up speech that hopefully they can play more finals and maybe sort of a couple go her way or with a different result. So I enjoy the way their games match up against each other. It's classic women's tennis, you know, attack versus defense, but not squarely defense. And I think Coco, as she gets older and stronger and all that stuff, I don't think we'll ever see her have the kind of point ending just pedal to the metal kind of power that Sabalenka has, but in her she has the pace to deal with that kind of power and other attributes to kind of make it go in her way. So I enjoy it.
I was wondering where you're going to go with that, because she definitely has some point ending shots.
Yeah.
Not as big as Sabalenka. If you're talking that, I mean, I think that backhand passing shot winner was the turning point in that match. And I remember that was the first like hot shot of the match, and I was just like screaming at that point, like, whoa, what a moment. Second, I don't know whether, I think that was probably the shot of the match in terms of its significance, although Sabalenka's lob after a lob was pretty close.
The backhand to end the entire match was kind of a culmination and a symbol of the entire match in a way. Just tracking everything down and putting Sabalenka in uncomfortable positions. So yeah, there were a bunch of moments where the backhand made Coco the champion that she now officially is, you know. So, and up to 3 in the rankings. She's literally the highest ranked American tennis player, male or female, right now. And that was, I'm not saying she was just light years away from it 2 months ago, but it didn't feel like that was about to be on the verge of happening. Here we are.
That was not the narrative, even post Wimbledon at all. It was, where's Coco going to go? What's this development? What's her development going to look like? We were expecting it to be a slow process, not, oh, she's just stormed her way to the Washington title. Oh, she's just beaten Iga Swiatek and won Cincinnati. Oh, and she's just won the US Open. Although the US Open was less of a surprise, because by that point, I mean, you know, I was rating her 4th most likely to win it ahead of the tournament, and that was not by much in terms of comparable to the top 3. She definitely, at the beginning of the tournament, felt like she had the everything you would expect from a US Open era winner in the current era, in terms of being a young, up-and-coming star, ready to break out, or at least ready to get a first major title, because, as we said, she'd already kind of broken out almost straight away, a bit like Andreeva has. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that point, but...
Well, I was going to say, this is kind of to your point. A lot of people, even me, I didn't necessarily see the U.S. Open championship or trophy lift happening, even in the tournament, because if you think about her run toward that final, we dropped sets to Laura Sigmund, Caroline Wozniacki, and who else did we drop a set to?
Yeah.
Oh, Elisa Mertens. All of those matches had tenuous moments. They weren't the most dramatic moments. It wasn't like she had to save match points per se, but there definitely were scrappy moments where she wasn't playing her best and her opponent was getting the best of her. And I figured, especially after that Wozniacki match, how many times can this happen and she actually be able to forge her path and get on top of her opponent and win. So to see her do it again against Sabalenka, the world number 1 now, is a testament to her fighting spirit and all the things that they've been working on in the past 2 months to get to this moment. But I even me as a fan, I didn't actually imagine Coco lifting the trophy. Like, and to your point about it being gradual, I thought a 500 in DC, a 1,000 in Cincinnati, and maybe like another quarterfinal or a semi at the U.S. Open would perfectly fit into the narrative of Coco maturing. But we got even more than that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I'm happy about it.
She started carrying herself like a champion. Even before, I think I said something similar to you before. Yeah, and let's face it, I don't think anyone can say in years to come, even if, you know, forbid this, but this is her only slam, you can't say she fluked it. That was as tough a run as they come. She beat 3 Grand Slam champions. She overcame Aryna Sabalenka, who just beat Iga Swiatek. She beat Elise Mertens, who we know is tough to beat in a 3rd round of a Grand Slam. Or was it the 2nd round? I can't remember which one it is.
It was third. It was third, yeah.
And Aryna Sabalenka, who probably
had the best season.
Yeah,
she had the best season of her career. Yeah,
yeah, and probably of anyone else. I think it's Aryna or I think Aryna's been the story of the year far more than any other player. Let's see how the rest of the season goes. But I think it's going to be hard for anyone to kind of top what Sabalenka's achieved. So yeah, I think Gauff is going to be. This is going to be one of those title runs that everyone's going to keep talking about, and everyone's going to say, "I was there for that." Do you know where I was? Remember, I was there for Coco Gauff winning the U.S. Open the first time.
I wish I was there this year. It didn't work out, but the YouTube social team, not the YouTube, the U.S. Open social team is putting out full matches basically before I can even contemplate or wrap my head around the match that actually just ended. So we'll have content out there for years and years, and people can watch it even if they didn't watch it in real time. So I think that's a great thing for tennis, Coco Gauff, and the U.S. Open as a whole.
Oh yeah, the US Open are brilliant for that. I mean, I've just discovered the Swiatek Sabalenka semi-final from last year, which I've never actually seen. So I'm going to have to go back and watch it.
It's a good match. Tense match.
It's exactly. I was like, I know it was one of the matches of the year, and I was like, I need to go watch this because, well, what self-respecting fan wouldn't do that? I did that with Emma Raducanu's run. 2021. I went back and reviewed every match because I was writing a piece about it for Popcorn. Let's talk about Sabalenka because we've mentioned her a few times. Where does she go from here? She's obviously disappointed the match didn't work out. I don't think she can be too hard on herself after that result. But I know she was probably expected to win, especially the way she turned it around against Madison Keys and seemed to set herself on the path. Yeah, where do you see sort of Sabalenka going from here?
Well, she's already at number 1, so she really can't go any further than that. She's lifted the number 1
trophy for 2 years. 3 years, never drop it.
I don't know if she'll be like an unwavering number 1 for 40, 50 weeks like Swiatek was, but her name is officially in the history books in that regard. And I don't see why she can't go back to the semifinals or better at every single major, because I mean that's what her record is now. A champion at Australia, semifinalist in Roland Garros, semifinalist at Wimbledon, probably should have been in the final of Roland Garros actually, and a finalist at the US Open. So if she ever feels at a moment where she is like having a rough patch, which I feel like is going to happen with the way that she plays tennis, the person that she is, I don't think it's going to be like from here until 2029 that she lifts and gets to the final of everything. I feel like there's still going to be some ebbs and flows to her career, but she should always be able to know that when I put it all together, I can beat the best in the world. And it's going to take a really, really stellar performance for someone to beat me if I'm playing well. And I feel like that's the kind of confidence that you can take from a season like this, especially a Grand Slam season like this. So I don't see much stopping her except maybe possibly herself.
Yeah, and let's face it, a lot of the time, the only people who can stop these players are usually themselves. And I completely agree. I think there's very few players who can stop Sabalenka when she's having a good run. They have to put in a great performance, as we saw Muchova, Jabeur, and Gauff do in the slams. I think he'd be a very brave person at the minute to not predict Sabalenka to not make at least the semi-finals at most tournaments she plays.
Which is good because it wasn't that long ago. It was only 2021 where Sabalenka had a very noticeable Grand Slam issue performance-wise and a WTA Tour issue. Like winning WTA Tour titles since 2018 has kind of been like commonplace for her, but it was the Grand Slams that she constantly was getting tripped up in the third or fourth, or even before that, the earlier rounds. And now from 2021 to here, she's basically made the second week or better at every single slam that she showed up to. So now she can merge all of that. She has a body of work to say, hey, I'm good enough to perform at the WTA Tour level, 500s, 1000s, and the Grand Slam level. So every week that I show up, if I'm healthy, I have a legitimate shot to lift the trophy. And I think that's huge for her and women's tennis and fans of women's tennis.
I don't want to dwell too long on this because I think I prefer to focus on on-court stuff. But what was your thoughts on that footage that emerged of her smashing her racket?
It didn't bother me. Like there are I shouldn't say very few, but the ratio of me getting like offended by what tennis players say isn't that, compared to like what everyone else seems to react to on Twitter and stuff. I wasn't one of those people that just felt like it was terrible. I didn't think that made her any difference in my mind as far as her being in a leadership role. It looked like a competitor that was upset at their performance and waited until she thought she had more intimate time to kind of let out that frustration. But someone also released a wider shot of that moment, and it looks like there were Netflix or some other streaming service or what have you, a microphone and a camera not that far off in the distance. And when I looked at it from that angle, in the perspective of seeing the camera and her probably seeing that in her peripheral too, and knowing that she was in the most recent drop of Breakpoint on Netflix, it seemed like they probably planted a seed and was like, hey, this would be nice for our storyline or story arc of you in your 2023 season. Almost there, but not quite. How does she deal with the frustration she takes out on her racket? So it felt genuine knowing who Sabalenka is outside of the cameras, or just how she naturally is. But then like seeing the cameras in that moment, I wouldn't be surprised if she quote unquote milked it or staged it a little bit. I wouldn't be too surprised by that.
No, yeah, and that's one of those things you always question when you see these Netflix things. I think my thoughts had nothing to do with her. We've seen players do it on court. There's no reason to judge a player for doing it off court is honestly probably a better place. My initial reaction was the same of I didn't feel comfortable with the fact that this footage come out, because I would have preferred her to deal with things in her way, process things herself. But then obviously that wider shot came out. I was like, oh, okay, never mind. It's fine.
And I like Ghosty saying in the chat, there's no such thing as a bad racket smash. I agree to a certain extent. If you are just literally you and your arm and your shoulder are the main culprits of that racket smash, you really aren't hurting anybody. When it gets to the point of you like throwing your racket into open distance or hitting it against something, and like the stuff kind of, I think that happened in a Novak Djokovic match in the Olympics where he just hit it against the side pole of the tennis. What is the thing in the middle? What is it called? The net. There we go. I don't know why net could not come to my mind, but you could see
tennis, not Miles.
It couldn't come to my mind. It's been a long week. Okay, but sometimes you can like see different particles of like rackets and stuff like that, the graphite, metal, whatever, and I can see how that would like get, could potentially harm somebody. But in general, I'm not offended by racket smashes, especially if it's just you taking out frustration on your weapon of choice and the ground. It usually doesn't result in anything terrible. It's just some people are super offended by that for whatever reason. I think people are still some people, not everybody, some people are really caught up into the etiquette and the gentleman, gentlewoman kind of aesthetic of tennis, and I think it's fine time that we move forward past that, because I think there's a happy medium. Like, these are still world-class athletes competing for millions, literally millions of dollars on the line. I can't be mad at them if they choose to take out their frustration on literally the weapon of choice in their hands. Totally different scenario if they put somebody else in harm's way, So
yeah, exactly. there you go. This is a nice, helpful reminder for you, Miles, going forward. All right. I think, I don't think there's a lot else to say about Sabalenka. I don't think this changes the narrative of her season at all. What do you want to say?
I have this was, I just put this on Twitter because it was coming to my mind, and this is going to like lead us into other people to talk about, but I cannot remember the last time, now that Sabalenka is world number one and I looked at the rankings, I can't remember the last time we had a top four in the WTA where everyone in that top four had a Grand Slam championship performance and a title to their name. In the last, everybody in that top four, Sabalenka, Swiatek, Coco, and Rybakina have all won a slam in the past 12 or 16 months.
That's
and
a really good point.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe 2002 when it was, or 2001 when it was Serena, Venus, Hingis / Davenport, and Capriati. If they were all in the top four in the early 2000s, then they would have touched the Grand Slam in the past 12 months or so. But other than that, I can't think of when that happened.
I'd have to look it up specifically. I feel like 2012-13 might be a window because your top four, your top three definitely won slams because you had
Sharapova, Serena, and Azarenka. Yeah.
The question is whether Lina or Petra Kvitova ever hit four during that period. Because I think Radwanska was in the mix as well, which complicates things.
For Lina, it would have had to have been in 2011-12 or 14-15. But didn't she retire at the end of the 2014 season? I think she did.
Yeah.
So there were some short windows. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. You're talking about recent winners.
Yeah.
Career win. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like career is one thing, but if they've all literally touched Grand Slam glory in that season that they're currently ranked for, or in just the last season prior, I think that says hugely about. I think that speaks to like how the ranking system can work when everyone's playing well and everybody's healthy, and two, just how good the WTA is trending right now. And I feel like a lot of people need to take heed to that and kind of walk back some of their statements about the women being, not as entertaining or completely unpredictable, which there's still layers to that. But the top four all having slams in the past 16 months is a great thing.
And actually, I mean, they're probably going to stay the top four unless something crazy happens over the next few weeks at the two 1000s coming up and the WTA finals. Mm-hmm. Look, this is very much reactive, but you find it hard to think that the next slam champion isn't going to be one of those four. If you see like the winner of the Australia, those four are going to be the favorites at pretty much 3 out of 4 slams in 2024.
Yes, they'll be the favorites. They'll be the favorites, but I still have like this one little dancing troll on my shoulder that reminds me that it's WTA, and there's always someone lurking. There's always
someone working. Like there will be someone around. Like Osaka's coming back.
Yes.
If she's feeling good, watch out. Karolina Muchova, I think, is on the fringe of something special. I just feel she's almost as consistent as Pegula at the minute, and I don't know where her ceiling is relative to Pegula, but I feel like she could pull something off. She's definitely shown capability of beating all four of these players.
Do we want to talk about Pegula in the US Open while we're here?
We could talk about both of them, to be honest. I think let's go semi-finals backwards.
Okay.
So we've just said Muchova. Just highlights it like a second Grand Slam semi-final, adding on to a Cincinnati final, top 6 in the world. She's finally coming good on all the hype.
Yeah, she's coming good on the hype and then managing her body, because literally even in this season, she's had moments where she said into the mic, my body said, ouch, like she said in the Cincinnati final, which I thought was funny. And it'll probably stay with me for a while. But I'm interested to see how she takes this and maybe collects trophies on top of it, because I think that is a difference. Like knowing that you've had a consistent season and knowing that you've been a champion in a season are close, but they're still very different. And if she can get her hands on a WTA 500 or 1000, maybe even at the end of this season, I think she goes into 2024, as long as she can remain healthy, a threat at one of the majors, because you don't have the kind of success that she's had now in every single slam, and not feel like you can do it again or feel like it's too far out of your reach, because she's made the semis of Australia, final at Roland Garros this year, quarters 2 times at Wimbledon, and now a semi in Australia. Those are kind of results that a lot of the WTA women are praying for. So yeah,
that would be brilliant. I think though it's all about her health, and I was looking at her run through the US Open. Apart from the wobble she had against Wong, was it Wong? She looked really good. Like that was the first time I'd seen her not scrap her way through a draw to get to a semi-final, and she looked like a top player. And she was right there with Gauff. She took advantage of Gauff getting a little bit nervous in that semi-final. I see no reason to think that she's not going to be a contender provided her body stays healthy.
She should definitely keep rocking that sleeve that we see in this picture. That's her look. I think it, one, is aesthetically pleasing to me, and two, I think it helps her body. I don't mind a player that kind of walks on the court with preventative stuff, especially if the preventative stuff looks cool. So, and Muchova has, for lack of a better term, she has swag. I like it. She doesn't have to try too hard. I think she just has natural swag. So if she's healthy, continues that swag that she brings to the court, I'm all for Muchova a surge even far into the rankings and Grand Slam success.
Let's talk about Keys and then Pegula. So Keys first. Obviously, I do have a soft spot for Madison Keys. She was so close. I think she was obviously gutted about what happened after losing in that semi-final, but she didn't do anything really wrong. She competed with the best in the world and nearly won. And this run kind of came out of nowhere. She's back in the top 10.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh wow. I didn't peep that. Is she like number 10?
9.
Oh.
Well, she's 9 in the race anyway. I think she's 9 in the rankings as well. I'm looking it up now.
She's 11 in the rankings.
Okay, yeah, she's 9 in the race. That's why I've got confused because I've started paying more attention to the race now. So she's back. Well, not back, but I suppose she's kind of back. She's back kind of where we know her level can be. And she's put in a couple of good results, quarters at Wimbledon, semis here. Apart from it, I mean, even the way it ended, it was tough. But she still has to be overall positive about this US Open, surely.
Yes. In her press conference, she said there's plenty or a lot to be positive about. I just don't think that the performance and the loss, the way it happened to Sabalenka, moves the needle forward that much in terms of me looking at where else Madison Keys can go in her career, because that was some of the best tennis she's played, literally against the now number 1 player in the world, and she still didn't walk up to the net as the champion. So it makes me think, well, what else can she possibly do? Like, the game is great. The game is great. I just think it's a little bit between the ears, because if you watched her play, I think in general, the tennis format for how good Madison Keys looks, the tennis format of there not being a clock and there always being a potential for your opponent to come back is not advantageous for Madison Keys. I just don't know if she relishes the time to be a closer. The best tennis players in the world are like always thinking about closing and using opportunities, even if they don't use the first opportunity to close out a match. The best in the world can get a second opportunity and make a second opportunity for themselves and close it out. And Madison Keys just isn't the best at that, and I'm not sure if that's ever going to culminate into the Grand Slam success and trophy that she wants. I'd like to see it, but moments like against Sabalenka make me weary that it's maybe never going to happen. I know that sounds harsh, but you have to look at the fact that she's 20, she'll be 29 next season, which is nowhere near old in tennis these days, but she has a lot of tennis played under her belt, and that kind of baggage that she just poured more, stuff into with this loss to Sabalenka, it makes me question if she's, going to get that one shining day in the sun that she's looking for.
She's always been a bit up and down. I could see a scenario where Madison Keys has the tournament of her life and wins it. I could see it happening. how likely is it, given how strong the opposition is, and given sort of she hit a bit of a wall when she came up against it, and can she really grit it out against them? That's the question, but only she can answer that. Yeah, I don't know when it would happen or how. Probably the US Open, most likely. That seems to be where she's most comfortable. But
I think there'll always be a wall for her. It just depends on what she does when she's faced with that wall in big moments.
And maybe one day she goes, "That's it, no more wall," and smashes through it. She's like, "No, not again." She could do it. All right, you want to talk about Jessica Pegula? Get whatever you have to say off your chest, Miles.
I don't think she's a bad player at all. I think she's actually a really good player, but I am choosing to take myself out of the race of Pegula and Grand Slam success. I don't think that at the current way that she approaches it, I'm not sure she's ever going to have the extra ante in moments where it really matters to lift the Grand Slam trophy. No matter how good she is, no matter how consistent she is, I've watched enough performances of hers now in slams that makes me believe that's just not the kind of player she'll be. She doesn't rise to the occasion. She brings that same level pretty much match in, match out. And if that level doesn't really shine in that match, she's susceptible to be beaten by a lot of different players. Normally she's not, but in positions where there's a lot on the line and players have extra motivation to win for prize money, ranking points, or just general success, I don't see enough elevation in her game to make me believe that she's going to do that, to lift the Grand Slam championship. And I think that's what the best in the world do. They see an opportunity. There's all kind of stuff about, like, taking it match by match and all that stuff, but the best in the world see themselves putting their hands on their trophy and elevate their games to make sure they can do that. And I just don't see that elevation after watching her Grand Slam matches for the past 2 seasons. I haven't seen much of it at all, if any.
I mean, here's what I would say. First of all, Pegula's loss to Keys, first of all, in retrospect, looks very good because Keys was damn close to reaching the final. But secondly, she had a bad day. Like, I was watching it, I was going, the level of consistency isn't there. And I couldn't find a reason for it. Mentally didn't make sense to me. I wondered whether she ran out of gas a bit, but because I think in the doubles match that followed, Coco did a lot of the work. But I don't know. I don't want to speculate. But I think it was she didn't flunk it this time. I think she just hit a wall, some kind of physical wall. And in that match against Keys, who then came close to the final against the number one in the world. So she was playing against someone who was showing a good level, and she always gets beaten by someone who's showing a good level. I agree with you about the consistency thing of she always brings the same level each time, and it depends on the day and the opponent whether that level's good enough. If she's playing someone who's having a great time, then yeah, she's gonna struggle to win that match. But I would say Canada gives her a little bit of hope, given the way she handled that one. I mean, she beat Gauff and she beat Swiatek in 2 very scrappy matches. It just shows a scenario where things could fall into place for her.
But that Canada win in Montreal, a lot of things fell into her way. Like, yes, she had to do the work to beat Swiatek, and yes, she had to do the work to beat Coco. But I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. I still think there's a scenario in which the weather doesn't play as much of a factor, and scheduling doesn't play as much of a factor as it did, that Samsonova beats Pegula in that final. If all things are even and Samsonova revs up her game to get the best out of the opportunity, I think she can beat Pegula in that Montreal final. It's just that all of those things were going against Samsonova, and Pegula keeps the level that she normally has, and that results in a win. But now we've had, just this season, every single slam that Pegula has played and lost in, she's either not shown up to the occasion, and I would say that she's done that against Azarenka in Australia and Madison Keys. Like, those players played well, but she also just kind of, the consistent level that she shows week in, week out was lower than it should have been. which makes me wonder, of all the times in the year for your level to dip, why does it consistently happen at the biggest tournaments in the world? Or she shows up, plays well like she did against Vondrousova, but can't close it out because she's not used to winning these types of matches. So there's a lot.
The Vondrousova win, she lost a lot of momentum
After the roof closed.
Yeah,
but all of that falls under the category of not being there that often. Like if you're already contemplating like, well, this is the quarterfinal, I've been to like seven of them already, now the roof is closing, this player is peaking against me, I can imagine all of that kind of going through her mind and kind of hindering her best performance. So I'm not anti Jessica Pegula. I don't think she doesn't rub me the wrong way in any way, and I don't want to come off harsh. I just don't see a Grand Slam trophy lifting performance in her future. And I think I have a feeling that although she's competitive, I feel like she'd be able to lay her head on her pillow at night. If she stopped tomorrow, I feel like she'd be, fairly confident with her career.
Just because it's had a great career, 2 1,000 titles is fantastic to get. Like those are some of the biggest titles you can win in tennis. So yeah, I don't think we can say that anyone who has been top 10 consistent as Jessica Pegula and has won the titles that she has had a bad career at all. So yeah, I think we could agree on that point. And I think I've kind of decided, and I'm going to do a little bit of a selfish plug here. I've just released a piece on Popcorn Tennis. Basically, I will not write any player off anymore.
No player? Not a player on the tour?
Maybe that's an exaggeration. but look, here's what I say. Like, we've had enough players prove us wrong before. There you go. That's it. Not an expert. Go have a read of it. Where basically I'm saying that I don't agree with. I think that we've been proved wrong enough times with Vondrousova. We wrote her off. So many people wrote her off from ever winning a slam. Coco Gauff, we were like, there were so many people going, that forehand's are going to get fixed quickly. Oh, she's just won the US Open. I'm of the view that I don't know enough about tennis to definitively say a player's never going to break through and is never going to perform level. Like Yana Ostapenko won Roland Garros, and in 2017, she had the 2 weeks of her life. She hasn't produced a consistent enough level since to do that again. But she did it once, and that's what matters. So
yeah, I think that's the beauty of sports.
This conversation with.
That's the beauty of sports, and specifically tennis. Like, there's as much as you can do the analysis, you can do that until you're blue in the face and red in the cheeks. The players that you think have an overwhelming percentage of winning still have to go out there and face somebody else who wants to win and is competitive. So there's always a chance that something crazy can happen, specifically in tennis, where conditions matter, confidence matters, the mental approach and tactics that you have, all of that matters. And then matchups matter too. So if you get a draw where the player across the net from you matches up to you pretty well 7 times in a row, boom, you're a Grand Slam champion, irregardless of what your ranking is or your confidence was before that. It could just fall your way, So I think that's the beautiful thing about this sport. And I see what you mean, because as much as you and I like watch tennis literally weekly, hello WTA Weekly, strange things still happen. Haven't we had like 3 lucky losers, although on a smaller scale? Haven't we had like 3 lucky losers just this season win WTA titles? Sarah Cerebus Tormo in Cleveland just a couple weeks ago. Who else was it?
Oh, there's a couple of us I know who you're talking about. Did Nao Habino win one? No.
Yes, she did. Nao Habino won Prague over Noskova, who was the hometown favorite. I believe she was the lucky loser. And there's someone else.
There was someone else. I can't remember who it was.
I think there was someone at more of the beginning of the season, I believe.
Was
it? No. I think it was on clay. Bronzetti? No, I may have made that up.
Yeah, but we know what we're on about. Yeah, 250 still counting. They're very competitive at that level. So yes, and what you're articulating there is of the same view of that's the beauty of sport, right? So that's why I'm basically saying no. I don't feel comfortable saying it's never going to happen.
Yeah, fair enough.
I will maybe say something like, "Is it likely?" But then again, hey, who knows? But there's, Pegula's had the level in her to beat the best players in the world. She's now beaten Swiatek. Has she got a win over Sabalenka?
Who is that?
Pegula.
Yeah, I think she has a Sabalenka win. Oh, my quick research found that it was Maria Timofeeva who won Budapest right after Wimbledon as a lucky loser. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, they were all really close together. Like
Budapest, Prague, and Cleveland all kind of happened within weeks of each
summer.
other.
Roll on absolutely crazy next few weeks, which we'll get to in a minute. Gonna try and wrap this up after an hour, but I think there's one story from the tournament. There's one player I want to mention from the tournament.
I wonder who that is.
Sorry, what?
I wonder who that is. I'm genuinely curious.
It's not hard to figure out, but also I'm doing it for Fakiha, because I know she always asks about this player every time she comes and joins us. Iga Swiatek, the new world number 2.
Groundbreaking. I had no idea you were going to say her
name. She's now no longer the best in the world, officially. She no longer has that number 1 ranking next to her name. This is an interesting place where after a player loses the ranking, that they have to almost feel like they have to go again. It was a bad day against a bad matchup that took her out the tournament. Really, Ostapenko did Ostapenko things. I think that's my summary of that match. But I know that I would struggle to give an objective view of Iga going forward. What would you say, Miles?
I think the only reason that most would kind of be down on Swiatek is if they have the lens of comparison, comparing her 2022 season to her 2023 season. But if you look at it from my lens, yes, she's number 2 in the world, and she didn't defend one of the 2 Grand Slam championships she won last year, but she also lifted 4 titles in totality of the season. And that's, some players, Sakari, don't even have 4 WTA titles in their career. Pegula doesn't even have 4 WTA titles in her career, So to win 4 in a season, especially off the heels of the first season where you touch world number 1 and don't lose it until a year plus later, I'm nowhere near like losing stock over her. I'm not doing anything to make her feel ashamed of her season. There's still room in the season for her to, win a 1000 and win the WTA finals. And honestly, I think there's still room for her to get back to world number 1 in this season, I believe, if things shake out her way. So in some ways, I think she can like reset and maybe like really take a deep breath and realize that she did something incredible and that I can't think any other player has done, where the number 1 ranking kind of sort of fell into her lap and she took it and ran with it and never let it go for over a year. And I think she deserves credit for that. But it certainly makes things interesting now, because for a while there, people thought like it was the Iga Swiatek show and everybody was trying to catch up, which I'm glad she did that, because it officially gave players something to chase. And now look where we are. The top 4 players in the world all have Grand Slam championships. And I'm not crediting that just to Swiatek, but the figurehead of somebody dominating something makes you want to work that hard and gives you a realistic goal of what you need to put in to beat them and get to where they are. And I think the game is better for it. So Iga Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina, Coco, all playing and competing for who's going to be officially, the best in the world. I'm here for that story all day long.
Yeah. And do you know what? So am I. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's been interesting seeing what she's done, but it's going to be nice seeing some real competitive rivalries. I've enjoyed the Swiatek-Sabalenka battles they've had, to be honest. And yeah, we know that trendsetters raise the level of everyone else. You're absolutely right. So I think Swiatek is young enough her career to go away, figure out what she needs to do to get the number one back. And there's different things she can do that we always see she's working on game wise, like introducing a slice, a drop shot, beefing up the serve a little bit. All things that she knows that she needs to develop, but she needs to develop with someone who knows what they're talking about, and not two people like us who've never tried it before.
It's exciting too, because there's still peers in her age group. Like I just took a quick scroll down the ranking, like Jing Kin-Wen, who's 20 years old. Swiatek's 22. Like that could be a potential rivalry that gives us some different layers of the WTA. Potapova, I kind of just threw that one out there. Sorry.
Iga Gauff. I mean,
Iga Gauff. Yeah.
Be a battle.
Yeah, Peyton Stearns, another young American who had a great U.S. Open. She's 21. Like, you never know how these players that are all in that 21, 22, 23 range are going to develop in the next couple of years. And now, based on what we've seen in this decade, Iga Swiatek has shown that there is some level of consistency and kind of how to formulate that into a tour that leans off of one person lifting the mantle. So I'm excited to see what the peers around Swiatek do, and I'm excited to see how she responds to that, because if there's one knock, I can't really say it's a knock on Swiatek, but there's been a couple of performances of hers where it feels like her opponent gives her a couple of good jabs and she kind of dwindles away. And I don't see fight until the last point mentality. Like, do you remember that match? I hope you do. Against Rybakina in Australia, the fourth round.
Well, I didn't see it.
I mean, it's kind of hard to sum up an entire match in one point, but that match point is kind of how I feel about Swiatek's level of fight. She didn't even go for the ball in that last point of the match. And somebody like Carlos Alcaraz, for example, I know this is WTA Weekly, but I think somebody said Carlos Alcaraz literally dived for the ball on the last point of the match against Medvedev.
And she's done those kind of she has fought to the end before. If you think about the Muchova comeback in Roland Garros and the Bencic win at Wimbledon, I think those are the two obvious ones that come to my mind where she did fight. She couldn't quite pull off the comeback against Svitolina at Wimbledon. Maybe it was just too much back to back. For most players, it would be. So
there's still as much as those two matches that you mentioned. How many
points she have to save against? She saved against Gauff before Gauff put her away in Cincinnati.
5, I think.
Yeah.
There's evidence to show that she's definitely not some pushover, but I think there's just enough evidence to show me that it's still something she can improve on. Like that loss against Rybakina in Australia. I think didn't she lose to Rybakina again in Indian Wells as well?
She did, yes.
That wasn't necessarily her best fighting performance, and I know she was kind of dealing with a rib injury or something that made her pull out of Miami. This Ostapenko loss, she didn't really have a lot of fight in her once Ostapenko put a stranglehold over that match. Even maybe Pegula in Montreal a little bit. There's, as much as I agree, there's evidence that she's not like a player that just completely crumbles and has no idea how to fight. I just think that if I'm giving like attributes and stars next to her skills, the forehand, backhand, all of that gets more stars than her tenacity, I guess you can say. And that's just something you work on from being in those positions, you know?
I think we have to agree to disagree on this one, but I actually think I wrote something else on Popcorn about actually, because I used to think the same thing about Iga, and then I looked at the matches that she's won, and actually the kind of capitulations are actually the minority of cases.
That's fair enough.
So, but I do see what you mean. It does happen sometimes, just maybe not as much as I thought at one point. So there's that. Okay, Iga show's done. Any other stories from the US Open that you want to make sure we cover before we wrap up?
I'm trying to see if anybody made like a very like first time into the second week of a major. Well, we mentioned her very briefly, or I did. Jing Kin-Wen got to her first Grand Slam quarterfinal. She didn't really put up a great fight against Sabalenka, but I think that is a very good step in the right direction. And I'm interested to see how her presence amongst the top 20 in the world now, I believe.
Yeah, she's top 20 now.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how she's 22 right now in the world, but you know, top 25. I'm
Yeah,
interested to see
she's
what.
very. I think she'll get top 20 soon. Again, race should help
Yeah,
her.
I'm interested to see what that does.
Actually, how she does in Asia could be interesting.
Yes. Also, how somebody that's done pretty good in Asia in their career, Karolina Wozniacki, who made the 4th round of the U.S. Open in her first time playing it since 2019. So
that was incredible. I did not think that was going to happen. I didn't even think Wozniacki was going to come back.
Right. It did seem like she was completely content. I mean, literally, she had a baby. I think her youngest baby is 10 months old, which is insane. Like, that's the equal amount of time about that it took to carry the child to term, so that's crazy. But I'm not mad that she's back in the mix, and I really do see a look of I'm not quite done yet. I'm not saying that she could get back into the top 10, because I don't think her cracking the top 10 is something that's so far off. I don't know if she'll get back to world number 1, because that takes a little bit more consistency, but her making a Grand Slam semi or something again is definitely not outside of the range of happening, nor is somebody she beat to get to the 4th round. I'm just kind of naming names. I looked through the draw of people I was impressed with. Jennifer Brady.
Yes.
If Jennifer Brady can depend on her body and find confidence and string matches together, I would not be mad if she, plays a little bit more on the 250, 500 level and kind of prioritizes that. But just in the 5 or so weeks that she's been back, she's made an impact. And you don't have the kind of firepower that she has, the kind of serve top spin that she has, and it just goes to waste. So if she continues on a good trajectory, interested to see how her name plays into the top of women's tennis, because she has the tools for sure.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that one.
I think you've kind of covered the big stories from the US Open there in one hit. I'm definitely excited to see what Wozniacki and Brady do in the future in their comebacks. I really hope they're contenders, because I want as many contenders as possible, because it wouldn't be the WTA if you didn't have that. So they are, I would be well up for seeing them get some great success under their belt. And Wozniacki came back at a level that she was beating really, really good players straight away. So there's, top 10 is optimistic, but I think there's valid reason to be optimistic.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I think one more question about the US Open, and then I want to talk about the tournaments we've got coming up briefly.
Oh, it never ends. We're on a complete hamster wheel in this sport. But yes,
going back to our winner, Coco Gauff, is the hype justified?
The hype that she received.
Now she's at the top of the game. This is where she stays, and she's going to compete like in the short term.
Yes, the fact that she's in the top 4 in the world and she has wins over everybody relatively recently around her makes me believe that she should have the confidence to continue what she's doing. You never know. There's different variables about health and confidence and stuff that does ebb and flow in tennis, but a Grand Slam trophy under her belt, a 1,000, a 500, 4 titles in one season, number 3 in the world, a win over the number 1 in the world, Swiatek, a couple weeks ago, which was kind of her litmus test as to how much she's actually improving. Hype justified. From 2019 beating Venus Williams in the first round to now, every bit of that hype was justified in my eyes. It didn't just come out of nowhere. I feel like people that watch tennis, love tennis, even just for the stories and as much for the X's and O's of it all, saw a lot in Coco Gauff and were justified in seeing a lot in Coco Gauff.
Yeah. For me too, I agree. I think the way that she won and the way that she's dominated the last few weeks has made me think, she's here to stay. She is a favorite at every single major.
I think sports, not even tennis, sports is better if she's staying around the top of women's tennis.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've got 2 tournaments going on at the same time, a 250 and a 500. It's a weird time in the tennis because we have a 1,000 starting a week today, which I cannot believe. I mean, it's not like in the days when we had Tokyo, which was a tier 1 tournament back in the 20 years ago, that started the day after the Australian Open, which seemed like madness to me now.
I enjoyed that tournament.
Although, wasn't it Martina Hingis dominated?
Davenport, Hinga, Sharapova. I think all of them have some titles there.
But anyway, this is not 2003. This is 2023. We are so we're in two different directions. We're kind of building to
The
I
Asian
want
swing.
in Guadalajara, which means
Mhm.
it's WTA 500 in San Diego, which
Mhm.
Vanch is covering for us
Yay!
on the ground. So I'm excited to talk to him about that when he gets back. And I'm looking to see what kind of content he sends our way. And that's kind of the bigger tournament. That's the one I'm super excited for. I haven't checked to see what the order of play is, but like Leylah Fernandez
We can
versus
do that.
Beatriz Haddad-Maia, I just saw as a first round draw. I was like, yes, please. I will watch that if it's on at a time that I can actually watch it.
It's a stacked 500 draw. Ons Jabeur's top seed. Karolina
It's
Garcia
always a
is
stacked
number 2.
500 draw.
Yeah, I know. And everybody, I think the players that showed up to play this one are all players that maybe have not had absolutely awful seasons, but could definitely do with lifting a trophy. And Karolina Garcia is one of them. Barbora Krejcikova is one of them. And obviously Maria Sakkari, number 3 seed, is one of them. Like, all of them need match play to kind of right the ship of what the past 6 months or so has looked like for them. So, I mean, there's opportunities for those players. There's also opportunities for some American names who all seem to be in either the very top or the very bottom of the draw because there's Alicia Parks and Sophia Kenin, a qualifier, Clervy Ngowe, who got a wild card into the U.S. Open. And then also at the bottom of the draw, there's Sloane Stephens and Danielle Collins. All of these players are unseeded, and playing in your home soil or playing on your home soil does something for a lot of different players. So, yeah, a lot to watch in that San Diego tournament.
Did you watch it last year? I think I remember it being quite good last year. Watching it.
How do you not remember that Swiatek won it?
Well, yeah, because I'm not that kind of fan who just talks about that all the time.
If my favorite player had a season like Swiatek did last year, you would not get me to shut up about it. I still talk about Serena's 2013 season, and it was literally a decade ago.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's going to be I enjoy a stacked WTA 500. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch when I can watch it, because obviously time zones are rubbish for me. I've actually gone out on a limb and predicted Beatriz Haddad-Maia to win it.
I wouldn't be mad at that. That's a name I looked over, but has had a good season in her own right as well. So, yeah.
Okay, and the other... Go on, sorry.
No, then that first round match you mentioned against Leylah Fernandez is something I'd watch as well. So,
yeah, I mean, I hope Fernandez wins it, but I'm not sure.
Crossed.
And this is one of those things. Like, I want either Fernandez to win or her to lose to the eventual tournament champion. I think that's where I'm kind of at. Like, you've got to be good to beat Leylah Fernandez. And then the other tournament happening is 250 in Osaka, which is currently being rained off. But we had a question in the chat from Fakir, actually, who was asking, do the Asian hard courts tend to play slow or fast? And actually, I didn't know the answer to that, so I was wondering if I could draw on your tennis memory. I
think it ranges, honestly, because in terms of Asian tennis, the last one I remember is Shenzhen, the WTA finals that Ash Barty won in 2019. That was not a quick court, but then my mind goes to like what you were just saying. I mean, the Tokyo is not in China, but the question was about Asia, right? Not just China.
In Japan as well.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what did I say?
You said China.
Oh,
we said Tokyo's not in China. I was like, did you think Osaka was in China?
I meant Osaka's in Japan. Yes, those who know me know geography is not necessarily my strong suit, but I did get an A in it in middle school. I think they play almost kind of like American hard courts. Actually, they vary depending on what the surface is made out of. I've seen them play quickly, and I've seen them play pretty slow as well. So.
Okay.
Just depends.
So it varies like you would expect, like in America, like anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers your question. So Osaka, very sort of, there's the highest seed there is Xu Lin, who's just outside the top 30. So I'm not expecting there to be it to be super exciting. There might be a few good stories coming out of it. Maybe we'll get a surprise winner somewhere. I think there. But that one's going to be even harder for me to watch because most of that's definitely during the night for me.
Yeah, there aren't any super standout names in the draw. I mean, Tatiana Marie is the number 2 seed. We already mentioned Julene. Yeah, not too much that jumps off of the draw. It's like, hey, you should watch this because of X, Y, and Z. So yeah, just I expect somebody to work through that draw. And what I like about 250s, I like when somebody that's never won a WTA title wins a 250. I don't know why I enjoy that so much, but it's like most times when that happens, I expect them to be like, well, hey, I won a 250, which is the lowest tier of the official WTA tour. Kind of revs you up to try again and try for a 500 or try for the second week of a major. I like that storyline. So we'll see.
Yeah, and given I think it shows that if you win a 250, you definitely belong in the top 100 at least. And I think especially depending on the 250. So and it always produces a great story because often a lot of these players are the ones who've really gritted their way through their careers. As well.
Or it's just starting for them, or they got a wild card, or it's just beginning to burn bright for them. So I think
depending on their age.
Yeah, depending on their age, yeah. 250s are definitely for mostly for the niche fans that watch weekly, and you definitely can pick up some storylines from them. So
I'm looking forward to talk about all those storylines on the next WTA Weekly. I think I'm going to have to wrap this up here because I have to get off to something else. But thank you so much for coming on, Miles. It's always an absolute pleasure talking tennis with you. I really enjoy your enthusiasm. And now I've seen your most enthusiastic side for all to see and remember on social media. So yeah, thanks for coming on. I think we've both enjoyed our US Opens. Great having you on.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, John, for allowing me the space on Talking Tennis. And can't wait to do this again. Always fun.
I'm looking forward to the next time we do it again. So tune in, like, subscribe if you're new. I think we've had some new names in the chat, which is great to see. Stay tuned for ATP Weekly, which is coming later. And come join us next week where we'll be talking about what the storylines that did emerge from San Diego and Osaka were. But until then, keep talking tennis.
Cheers.
This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Turn your speakers and earphones down just a little bit as we are reminded of the final seconds of the US Open Women's Final on Saturday.
That's what I'm talking about. Coco Gauff, a U.S. Open champion. That's what I'm talking about. Oh my God. Look at her. Look at her. Oh. Oh.
Get up, Coco Gauff. You just won the US Open.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.